I think the sky is not the limit. I think the universe and the cosmos is. And I think I just push myself with being deeply grounded in my spirituality, and it's this fantastic support system of women who collaborate.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Iconic Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Chaitra Vedulapalli, President of Women in Cloud. This podcast is for founders, executives, investors, and change makers who are done playing small and ready to lead movements that actually matter. Each week, we don't just talk about big ideas, we unpack lived experiences, pivotal moments, and the real system behind leadership that democratize access and create lasting impact. Because here's what I believe: prosperity should be the default, not the exception. Together, we are here to democratize intelligence, elevate how you lead, and help shape the next 50 years of inclusive innovation. So let's begin. Today, I get to introduce someone I've known for over a decade, someone whose leadership I deeply admire, not just for what she does, and also how she shows up while doing it. I am joined by Shreya Krishnan, Managing Director of Anita B. Org, India. If you care about shaping the future of work through the gender lens or building AI systems that are not just powerful but accountable and deeply human, then this conversation is for you. Shreya brings nearly 20 years of experience across marketing, corporate communication, and CSR. She's held leadership roles at Avon and First Advantage. Today, she leads Anita B. Org, India's mission to advance women in technology at scale. She also chairs the Policy Advocacy Committee for UNESCO Women for ethical AI in South Asia, shaping conversation that influence not just companies, but countries. But here's what makes her extraordinary. She's also a published poet, a trained dancer, an amazing mom, a powerful TEDx speaker, a co-author of Words Matter, a book that empowers young girls through a power of language. And that's Shreya I've always admired. She does not separate policy from poetry. She does not separate systems from soul. She builds ecosystem with empathy. Her work lives at the intersection of technology, inclusion, and arts. She understands the ethical AI is not just about bias mitigation framework. It is about human values. It is about our voice and our identity. It's about who gets to shape the future. What pulled me into this conversation isn't just what Shreya has built, it's how she carried the weight of scale, the influence, and legacy as it grew with grace, depth, and quiet strength. And today we get to learn from that journey. So let's dive in. Welcome, Shreya.
Oh my God, thank you, Chaitra. It feels like almost a testament I must live up to, or a legacy that I should build. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful. I mean, so many years of us working together over so many moons, and here we are. And every time I speak to you, it's such a joy, it's such a pleasure to see what you're building, to see the stories of the women you bring together. Women in Cloud has such a beautiful place in my heart for all the amazing work that all of you do together. And so beautiful to collaborate with all of you.
Thank you, Shreya. I think the feeling is completely mutual. I admire you exactly the same. I think we touch so many women and the work that we do. And if even if you look back 10 years ago when we met, we had the same intent and it has not changed even after a decade. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So we get to be doing amazing things together. But I actually want to go back to your origin story, something more personal. Let's pause for a moment on the theory, but let's go back to the chapter in your life when the social entrepreneurship did not just influence your work, but fundamentally changed how you look at leadership. Take us there. Where were you at that moment? What was happening? Give me the context, the tension, also the responsibility. And in that moment, something shifted inside you.
Actually, most people go through corporate careers. Most of my friends have been through corporate careers, get to their 40s, and they're like, okay, now I need to pay it forward, or I need to pay it back, or I need to give back, I need purpose. For me, it was actually quite the opposite. I started out wanting to be an environmental journalist. I'd worked with Greenpeace and United Nations Environment Program, and I'd done the Tunza Youth International Conference, and I was a journalist for the Hindu. I had these huge dreams of activism, of journalism, of sustainability, of writing and using the pen as a way to showcase that activism and maybe make change happen. And very early on, I realized that doesn't pay very well. So I actually did a U turn on that and I said, okay, I'll come back to this. But interestingly enough, impact stayed with me through my entire career. Everywhere I went, I was the person where CSR would end up because I had done work in the impact space. I was the person where DEI would end up because I had done work in the DEI space. So, interestingly enough, what started as a college dream of being this environmentalist, journalist, sustainability evangelist somehow continued and it just came together in the most beautiful way after 18 years of corporate career, of doing a lot of these things along with my mainstream role, to come straight back into the purpose that had led me to search and seek what I had 20 years ago. It took a while coming, but when it came exactly and fell in the place that where my heart rested and where my soul, I think, breathes easy, knowing this is the work I do in the world we're in today.
It's amazing, when you go back in the history and you look at it and you say, I always had that activism. I always had the justice in me. But was there a conversation where you sat down with somebody and you said, no, I think I need to change, or nothing? You just smoothly entered, or were there any people in your life that shifted the?
I think the first shift happened when I worked at the Hindu. I worked with somebody beautifully powerful who was like an editor, and his name was Satyamurthy at that time. And I remember speaking to him about this, and he laughed and he said, it's a life of choice. And what are you choosing? And at that time, I remember money was important because I came from a very middle class, very simple, humble beginnings. So money was important. And I was like, a journalist's salary somehow feels restraining. And I was already experimenting being an anchor. I was always multi hatting, right? I was always trying to find different ways of earning and different ways of making and creating value. And somehow I always felt, I think, that whatever I did, I should do something pro bono. I should spend some time doing something impactful. I think
Hmm.
that was my anchor. I remember being part of Selco Foundation, doing work with them, Samiksha Foundation, working with cancer kids. Back in the day, it was not even necessary. I remember interning with Environment Support Group and I didn't need to do an internship. So I think there was always something that anchored me back to purpose. I think that it always made me feel like there should be one pulse check that I do that's basically feeding my soul, right? While I pick up the checks that come along the way. And I think that stayed consistent, but I think the literally the coin dropped when Aeon had been 6 year long, and that's when we'd met, my early years in Aeon. And then I was already working at the intersection of DEI so deeply. I'd written the book, I'd done all of that work. And so when Anita B, sort of the conversation went to, will you join us on the board for India? I was like, in a heartbeat. 3 months in, they're like, will you really head up the business? And I was like,
Wow.
oh, I mean, it just came to me. And I think I truly believe that timing is powerful. And that's what it was. It was just coming home to something where I feel I deeply belonged right from the start.
I can see the thread, Shreya. Like if you think about the life of choice and having the heart of giving is the thread or the pattern that you can see. And I think you're doing it every single day. And now you can do it on scale. So you have worked in the intersection of like tech and inclusion and ethical AI now. And what I've admired is really how you moved from individual advocacy into shaping systems. So I'm curious, in your journey, how have you seen the shift from championing an individual woman to actually influencing structure, policies, and ecosystem?
I think early on, I remember I was part of a lot of these women movements around India, right? I was part of Shiros, and Shiros was doing a beautiful job of traveling to different cities, telling the
Yes.
stories of people. And at that time, Saidi was bringing together the platform, and it was so powerful to see some of these women. And I remember sitting there telling these stories of these women, some of them regional languages. I was a translator and I was
Mm.
translating their real life struggles and their strife. And I remember acknowledging the privilege that I came with, right? Acknowledging that English was a privilege, acknowledging that I could articulate was a privilege. So I remember sitting there thinking, I can't just do this for myself because there are so many women with so much lesser agency, lesser influence who are doing so much more. So I remember being deeply humbled into a reminder saying, enough of pouring into your cup. It's time to pour from your cup into many cups. And I also remember being recognized by random people who I didn't even know were reading my stuff. I remember a girl coming up to me at office and saying, "You inspire me so deeply." I remember going to this girl to write a secret Santa note in the office, and she said, "I know you don't know me, but I have to tell you a story." And she said, "I joined this organization 2 years ago, and I've been following you on Facebook." And at that time, it was Facebook. I was doing the 100 Sari Pact, and she said, "I'm a single mother. My husband left me. My parents didn't take me back. I leave my 6-year-old son at the neighbor's." She said, "I have really tough days. I ask myself about this guilt that I carry." And she said, "And I see you, and I see your stories, and I read what you write." And she said, "It inspires me to go from one day to the next." She says, "If I
Wow.
see you,
Wow.
I tell myself if she can do it, I can do it too." And at that time, I just had my baby. I was talking about postpartum depression. One grateful thing that I think I've managed to do is be very honest about my life, right? The fact that now I'm a single mother, co parenting, all of these aspects, I think women are put under so much pressure to show up as if everything's perfect, but everything's never perfect. And I think just chasing that idea of honesty and authenticity led me to becoming somehow a force of strength for people I didn't even imagine I was impacting. And I think that was a very powerful reminder of the responsibility I carried, not the power, not the influence, but the responsibility and the accountability I had for these women who somehow, somewhere, were willing to go another day because they saw that they were not alone. And I think that's the most humbling thing ever.
I love the story. And Shreya, I don't think I've ever shared that. Is when I saw you the first time, I think it was in India when we met in Bangalore, how honest you were about the life that is around you, like the complexity you were leading with. And I could relate to that complexity, but I couldn't articulate. I didn't have the courage to say that in public. And I was like sitting there, say, this woman is so bold. She's not afraid to share what's going on. And I think that was a moment I said, I can, because you were the first, I would say, South Asian woman who had the courage to speak in India, in open space, and moving like 200, 300 people to like nod. I was like, wow, that was my moment. I was like, so much respect. And I think I've started to embrace the same thing because I came from corporate. You had to have a different persona all the time, right? You had to be perfect, you had to abide by the boundaries. But doing the Women in Cloud, I actually lead with the same truth and honesty and authenticity. I say, this is what you get. This is who I am. This is the pieces I bring to the table. So thanks for sharing, because when you were sharing the story of the women, I had goosebumps and I could feel it because the struggle is real for so many women across the world.
Absolutely. And Chaitra, I've admired how beautifully we both engage with each other because both of it comes from the same place of intent, of reality, of honesty, of complexity, of being brown women in this world that doesn't see us, understand us in so many ways. And I love and appreciate that about you and the work that you do.
Thank you. The same. It is the same. When you look at the impact today around you, what ripple effect are you most proud of?
I think when I see, like yesterday, we had this circle called Audacious Her. You got the book, you speaking at Grace Hopper. It's Namita Kuti and my attempt at writing about living an audacious life as a woman and being real, being authentic, being as honest as you can be, but at the same time, with all the ambition and all the dreams and all the hopes that you carry, and celebrating that, right? Celebrating the audacity of that. Namita says it beautifully. She says, Uski himmat kaise hui? You'll hear that so often. How dare she? Or how she had the audacity. And we're like, Uski himmat hui. Yes, she had the audacity. So we brought a bunch of women together, just 12, and there was vulnerability, there was sharing of stories. And these are all women who are like phenomenally accomplished, phenomenally out there killing the world. But the shared reality of the complexity was so powerful. And I think ripple effects are not the ones that happen in en masse or at scale, but it's that 100 nods coming together in a room when you share something that's, oh my God, it's that little aha moment. It's that time when you nudge somebody to ask a question at a table they would have never asked that question at. It's that moment when you gave the courage for somebody to speak up and say, I'm sorry, I'm not okay with this treatment. It's the ability for a woman to claim her seat at the table. It's the ability for an LGBTQ plus person to come out and say, this is who I am, and not be afraid. So I think when you look at it, the scale is in the moments of when you touch people's hearts and souls. The work can be transactional, what you build can be commercial, but what you create, what you craft, what you say, what you speak has to be essentially human. And I think at the center of all of this is a beautiful human being who's just wanting to be seen, heard, and held. And if you can do that for people, and if you can be that for people, I think that is scale in a very measured, differently kind of way. And there's poetry in that magic of being able to create that scale in microcosms, in largeness. Grace Hopper, of course, brings together thousands of people. And I never say no to somebody who'll ask me. I'll say, I'll come back to you, find me later. But I don't have the heart to say no selfie or no autograph because I know what it feels like to look at somebody and hope that you'll be there because I've been there. I've been like, I've aspired to be there. And it almost seems almost privilege guilt that I have that access today. And I just want to pour so much of it into everybody. And I think that's what just helps keep me going and keep me going. And it's just that.
Shreya, there's something about the work you do because you make people like from invisible to make them visible. Really, the words you use, the environment you create, everyone feels like they are seen, like they're visible in this invisible world, right? Because everyone is running around with that. Where did you get that desire to help shift that paradigm from invisibility to visibility? There must be a moment that you said, ah, I see it now. I know what the power of words make does or creates.
And I go back to a childhood story for this one. I was very scrawny as a teenager. I dressed in oversized clothes. I was the classical tomboy of the yesteryears, right? I had big fat soda glasses. Even today, my school friends call me Sodi. And I remember all my teachers would call me overconfident, right? And it was always interesting because I'd be given the side role, and eventually they'd realize that I'd learned all of the lines and I'd end up playing the main character. So I always had main character energy, but I was never chosen for it. I always had to earn it, right? I always had to, and that what was happenstance. It didn't bother me at all. And I somehow was in this bubble, right? I was dark skinned. My nicknames were Kali Karpi. You know what it's like to be dark skinned and to be in South India, right? And I grew up with all of that, but I think something protected me from not internalizing those voices. My
Mhm.
confidence never got impacted. Then I started growing, and then I started realizing when I started interacting with so many of these women that they had internalized those voices and that they'd
Mhm. Mhm.
stopped believing in themselves.
Mm,
And somewhere I felt this protection that I had from those voices was so easy to access. I didn't think that others would have struggled with it. I was
mhm.
like, come on, you can't let that impact you. And somewhere I think the moment when I realized that, oh my God, my overconfidence was just confidence. They just didn't like to see it on somebody who looked like me. I was like, that's it. If you can help people be seen for who they are without judging them for a moment on their skin color, on their race, on their, how they look, on how their accent sounds, where they're from, I think that's when I realized the magic of just allowing people to be the fullness of who they are without putting the pressure on them of a pretense. And I think, of course, then psychotherapy happened. I learned how to hold space. Spirituality happened. I learned how to hold space. I do sessions that are fairly complex. I take on very complex cases. But one thing that keeps resonating back is at the other end of the spectrum is just a human being. And all they want is to be heard and seen. That's it. And when you see them and when you see their honesty, and I believe this truly, and it is a ripple effect because I only cater to the goodest, most highest version of that person's inner self, and I only get that in return. I can't remember a lot of people who don't know me probably dislike me, but people who I know and who are in my inner circle, I know for a fact that's what resonates and that's what I pour. And that's what comes back manifold. And I'm deeply honored and grateful to do the work I'm doing because I'm witness to women like you around the world doing incredible work. And it's so inspiring. And to be surrounded by that is a dream for anybody. And I'm living my dream currently.
I think I resonate so well, Shreya, because the thing that you said was when they can see themselves and their own potential, oh my God, that's the best gift you can give them, right? It just changes the energy. And like they didn't see the potential. We saw the potential, and it makes a huge difference. When people come out of the stage, there's one thing they always say, how did I do? Did you like what I said? And you had to just say, wow, it was awesome. And just one word, it just lights them up. And it's the same thing in life, I personally feel. It's just a glimpse, is a stage, is a glimpse, but the life is that journey. So I want to know is there a personal framework or a philosophy or a decision filter that keeps you grounded when the stakes are high? Because you are working in very high stake environment, a lot of charged politics everywhere. Is there anything that keeps you grounded?
Yeah, I think my spiritual practice, I deeply believe in spiritual leadership, and I
Mm,
believe that whatever work I'm able to do is happening through me and
mm,
it's not me. And I think that keeps me very honest and grounded. And when you think of the kind of scale and when you think of the problems that have had in the last couple of years of just the way gender has been looked at, the way DEI has been looked at, all of that, I think what just held me together was my spirituality and my deep belief that things would happen. And it is lonely when you're the only person that's positive, irrespective of how messed up everything is. And I think that just kept me going. I was like, there's no way it's not going to happen. I may sound like I'm deluded. I may sound like I'm pushing for the sky, but when it's people's lives, when it's people's careers, when it's women's choices, when it's their freedom, when it's their access, I think the sky is not the limit. I think the universe and the cosmos is. And I think I just push myself with being deeply grounded in my spirituality, and it's the fantastic support system of women who collaborate. I think stepping into purpose, that's the other magic because you've stopped competing, you're only
mm,
collaborating.
mhm,
And I think
mhm,
these
mhm.
two things, professionally and personally, have just helped me tide past so many of those complexities in the last, especially in the last year and a half. Year one was much easier, although the chaos was more trying to bring it back to life. But year two, to keep it going, and with all of the hurdles and the lack of resources, and oh my God, to be on the other side of that in itself is a huge relief. But I think, yeah, that's what kept me going. Those girls, they're
Absolutely. I
doing.
think the environment that we are living in is not easy at all for supporting women-led initiatives. It is definitely hard. But take me more into what does a spiritual leadership look like and what are the components? Give me some color around it.
Actually, that's interesting you asked me because I've been toying with the idea of writing a spiritual leadership book.
I would love
When
to.
lead, when leadership is about putting the spotlight on not just one person but on a collective consciousness,
Mm,
right? Very
mhm,
often, leaders are sort of deciding their choices based on their immediate teams or their immediate tasks, whereas spiritual leadership is slightly larger. It's more around also having the 30,000-degree view of what is the scale, what is this impact, what are we trying to do, what are we trying to achieve. Not in
mhm,
terms of numbers, but lives impacted,
mhm,
livelihoods touched. And then also the whole idea of deep empathy, but not from a space of not being able to draw boundaries or not from a space of being able to be pushed over, but from a deep sense of awareness of your own strengths, your own weaknesses, a very clear reality check on what is leadership, who are you, knowing your patterns, going inwards and understanding that everything that you are, your childhood decisions, your traumas that you carry, the patterns that you build, things that you do as a leader, just being present to it in a way that you're ready to learn and live and grow. And that's what spirituality is, right? Spiritual leadership is deeply about being present in the moment to what is necessary.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I'm sure you'd have noticed the person that you knew 10 years ago was a girl bouncing off the walls with energy and rage and anger, not knowing how to channel it right. But today I know I'm a far more deeply grounded woman trying to do what I can without trying to burn myself out in the process by just deeply being steeped into the awareness of knowing how much, what, where, and I'm so much more measured. Even in the way I speak, I'm sure if we go back to that video from 10 years ago, the pace at which I spoke was also so fast because it was always like I was trying to rush and catch up. But I think spirituality slows you down. It sort of it holds you. There's a certain gravitas that comes. And spiritual leadership is deeply about going within and deeply
mhm,
about recognizing what that looks like. You can have analogies to it. You can call it psychological leadership because they're very similar in terms of understanding patterns, nuances. But for me, it's a combination and a conjunction of both that come together into what I call spiritual leadership. It's mostly about going inward.
I would love to read the book because it resonates with me. And I think I relate that if you go back 10 years to how fast our brains were racing and how grounded we are, and we understand what it takes to move the needle. We understand the mechanics, so we know there has to be patience in the process. It's not about being impatient. It's okay to be impatient, but to achieve like greater good, you have to be patient because you have to bring a collective conscious together and move the needle for them. So I'm all in. Whenever you're writing, whenever you're launching, I'm there in that room
Yes.
celebrating you, Shreya.
Oh, thank you, Chaitra.
Yeah, I want to also touch on the invisible labor of leadership because you are doing a lot of the leading, but behind the scene, there's a lot of things that happens in your life, which is essential. When we think about like the leadership work, it's mostly invisible. So is there like a behind the scene, a labor that happens that people don't see, but it's essential? And I want you to take people through it. What does that look like? As you lead Grace Hopper India and big initiatives within it, what does that look like?
I think one is just the hustle of the everyday because we're a small team, it's just 10 people. We're all trying to be everything for everyone. We're trying to bite more than we can chew, always, right? Punching above our weight, always. And with impact, all of us are doing that. And that in itself is a huge road, right? Trying to get as much done, trying to get as much access, trying to bring in as many people. Even the smallest things, right? Policy, even signing things, there's so much that happens. There's legal, there's compliance, there's and India's complexity of sort of running something like this is deeply steeped in paperwork as well, and I hate paperwork, okay?
Me
and
too.
and there's just so much of that needs to happen. So there's paperwork, and I'm not great with finances. I'm great with understanding numbers, I'm great with sales, but I'm not great at bookkeeping. So the structure and the rigor and all of that's needed. And all of us can't afford CFOs. So you're sort of playing COO plus CEO plus CFO plus all the CC, whatever you need, you can, and you do bring. And of course, then there's the pressure of putting such a small team through that kind of hustle, right? Because
Mhm.
you literally somewhere in the back of their mind that it is pushing them to burnout.
Mhm.
You know that there's only so much resources available. You know what you need to get done to get to that finish line. So it's also dealing with the reality check of how much is too much. You know, how
Mhm.
inspired can you be? How motivated can you be? And purpose is thankless so many times, right? And it's not like we have deep pockets. I keep joking that the Anita B team looks damn good, but don't believe the book cover because what's inside, we know the reality. We're like a bootstrap startup, right? And that's
Yep.
exactly how we function. So I think that a lot of those kind of realities of showing up as the face, irrespective of what's going on in the undercurrent, sort of opening up a new market, rebuilding from scratch with nothing to go on. I think these were all some of the things that we dealt with and we continue to sort of deal with as we build. And just to be able to reach that kind of scale and impact, not possible, right? We stand on the shoulders of giants. So I'm very grateful for all of our collaborations, our corporates, the people that show up consistently. It's just, it happens because of them. Right? So
Mhm.
also to be aware of how beautifully grateful you must be through the process, because this is not you. This is everybody who believes in something that's so much bigger and so much larger. So I think just being present to that kind of leadership in itself gives you so much of grounding.
Yeah, set the context for people of, I know it's 10 people, but you are serving a country that's 1.3 billion people. So give me the scale so people can understand how much appreciation it goes in for people who are doing and serving such a large scale of women's network. Go ahead, Shreya.
Yeah, so 29 million women in tech in India and growing by the minute, 14% at the VP level, 2% at the CXO level. So we can see the gap clearly, right?
Mhm.
38% at entry level with 29 million women. And Anita B's mission is to focus on creating opportunities, access, helping them build, scale, grow, network, find jobs, keep playing the game so that they can be financially independent, they can scale up the leadership ladder, they can continue to grow into leadership positions. So the scale is crazy. We have 70 plus pathways partners like Women in Cloud. We have that beautiful network. We have academia across the country that comes together, not just Grace Hopper, but over the year to do programs in various colleges. We have corporates. Our corporate partner network is about 27 partners plus over the last couple of years. We run annual corporate programs for them. So there's our community, which is 15,000 people in India, 1,40,000 plus people around the world, that Grace Hopper and Grace Hopper India both serve as platforms for them. So it's programming for them, it's programming for the network. So every week there's like community sessions that are going on. People are learning, people are growing. So it
A
is
lot, right?
when I'm saying it, I'm like, oh my God. Then there's policy, then there's UNESCO's work, then there's government work. We're trying to get the government involved in some of this. So it's just a coming together of a lot, but it's beautiful. It's
Uh,
able to be able to scale it is, I think, the magic.
I'm in awe of the work you have done. And what do you hope you continue long after you have left the room? What do you want to see?
I think I just want to see women who are not afraid to pull up a chair and demand a
Mhm.
seat at a table that they weren't invited to. I
Mhm.
want to and I hope to see women who will expand their network and grow and sort of welcome more women as they pay it forward for others. And it's like a ripple effect, right? I think for way too long we've been told that women compete with each other, but I have only seen the power of sisterhood manifest and multiply and grow, and women changing women's lives. And that's what I want, right? That's what I want women to feel empowered to do, for them to hold open doors for everybody else. for them to know that their journey was tough, but we can make it easy for so many others down the line. And I think that's my hope and my promise, to be able to make that happen in some form or the other.
Shreya, you have touched my soul, and I know I have identified my own authentic self and leading every single day. So, as we come to the close, is there a question I should have asked you, but I did not today?
I think the only question is, dance has been a source of beautiful disconnect for me. And unfortunately, in the last 2 years, there have been two times when I've broken my foot, once on the right, once on the left. And that has been my biggest patience teacher, right? To be patient and to wait and to not mess it up. So I think breaking my foot taught me patience, which I did not have. And I think that's the one I think I've sort of learned to sit with it and wait till it heals. Yeah.
Shreya, the patient teaches you what it takes for the body to heal. And it's the same thing in life. So just be patient and you'll be fine. You'll be on the dance floor. And probably in December, we get to dance together.
That's
So
the plan.
yes, I'm learning some dance right now. So hopefully we both will be able to do it together.
Absolutely. I think dance is so necessary for us to
It
keep our
is.
sanity and for people around us to sort of breathe so we don't lose it with them. So,
Exactly, exactly. So,
yeah.
Shreya, thank you for sharing your beautiful stories, your framework, especially your spiritual leadership and the real work behind what it takes to lead your Grace Hopper India. So, before we close, where can your listeners connect with you so they can support your work?
So there's LinkedIn, of course, reach out to me and I will connect you. But there's also the anitab.org membership platform. You can become a member, join, it's for free. Engage with us. The community is huge. All of the Women in Cloud community is part of that community. We all cross pollinate so beautifully. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us anywhere on any of the social media platforms, anitab.org India, and you can engage and connect with us, and we'll be happy to open our arms and welcome everybody who wants to be a part of this movement to just come join and let's make this world better together.
Again, thank you, Shreya. It was such a beautiful experience. So, for everyone who's listening, if this conversation resonates, make sure you subscribe to the Iconic Leadership Podcast. If you can explore the Iconic Leadership Assessment, watch the movie Icons, and join the waitlist for our upcoming book, Iconic Leadership Book, where Shreya's story will also be featured. And if this episode added value, can you do me a favor? Take a screenshot, tag, and share. And that's how we know what's landing and we can start creating more conversation like this for you. If someone in your life could benefit this one, someone who's at that turning point or need this message, this probably is the episode you want to send. And also, the last thing before we go, as a thank you for listening, we do have a special prize. The first 10 listeners will be entered to be a prize drawing to receive a free copy of the Iconic Leadership book during the launch. I am Chaitra Vedulapalli. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, when we lead with purpose, we unlock prosperity for everyone. Thank you.